Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the main screen. After 6 months of traveling through deep space, they had finally reached Zelthara Prime. This was humanity's first real chance to make friends with aliens who seemed peaceful and smart. "We're getting their welcome signal, Captain," said Amy Chun from her communication station. She was young but good at her job. "They're speaking perfect English." "That's because they're telepaths," explained Dr. Sam Rodriguez, the ship's science officer. He pushed his glasses up his nose and looked excited. "They can read our minds and learn our language instantly." Jake nodded but felt nervous. Meeting aliens was something humans had dreamed about for centuries. Now it was really happening, and he was responsible for making sure it went well. His crew of 200 people was depending on him. So was everyone back on Earth. "Take us into orbit, Lisa," he told his second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker. She was tough and smart, and Jake trusted her completely. "Yes, sir," Lisa replied, her fingers dancing over the controls. The Liberty moved smoothly toward the planet. The planet below looked beautiful. It had blue oceans like Earth, but the land masses were purple and silver instead of green and brown. 3 small moons hung in the sky, casting strange shadows on the surface. "Captain, we're being scanned," reported Lieutenant Tom Brady from the weapons station. "It's not hostile, just curious, I think." "Let them look," Jake said. "We have nothing to hide." A new voice came over the speakers. It was soft and musical, clearly female. "Welcome, humans of Earth. This is Ambassador Kiravel of the Zelthari Council. We are honored by your visit." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Federation. We're honored to be here, Ambassador. We come in peace, hoping to build friendship between our peoples." "Your peaceful intentions shine clearly in your thoughts, Captain Morrison. Please, bring a small delegation to the surface. We have prepared a welcome ceremony." 2 hours later, Jake stood in the shuttle bay with his team. Lisa would stay on the ship to keep watch. Jake chose Dr. Rodriguez because they might need a scientist, and Amy because they needed their communications expert. He also brought Lieutenant Danny Foster, a security officer, just in case. The shuttle ride down to the planet was smooth. As they broke through the clouds, Jake saw a city that looked like something from a dream. The buildings were tall and curved, made of what looked like crystal and metal. They seemed to glow with their own light. "Amazing," whispered Dr. Rodriguez. "Their technology is at least 100 years ahead of ours." The shuttle landed on a platform near the city center. As the doors opened, Jake took his first breath of alien air. It smelled like flowers and rain. A group of Zelthari was waiting for them. Jake had seen pictures, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall and thin, about 7 feet high. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes were large and silver. They wore flowing robes in soft colors. One of them stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, maybe 6 feet tall, and her robes were deep blue with silver trim. Her silver eyes met Jake's, and he felt a strange tingling in his mind. "I am Kiravel," she said, speaking aloud instead of using telepathy. "Welcome to Zelthara Prime, Captain Morrison." Jake held out his hand, a gesture they had practiced. To his surprise, Kiravel knew about handshakes and took his hand gently. Her skin was warm and soft. "Thank you for welcoming us, Ambassador," Jake said. "We're excited to learn about your people." Kiravel smiled, but Jake noticed something strange in her eyes. She looked at him like she knew him, but that was impossible. This was first contact. No human had ever been here before. The welcome ceremony was held in a large building with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal. Hundreds of Zelthari had gathered to see the humans. They were polite and curious, asking questions through their translator devices. Jake tried to focus on the formal speeches and gift exchanges, but he kept noticing that Kiravel was watching him. Every time he looked her way, she quickly looked somewhere else. During the feast that followed, Jake tasted foods he had never imagined. Everything was delicious, but he barely noticed. Something was bothering him about the way Kiravel was acting. Dr. Rodriguez was having the time of his life, discussing science with Zelthari scholars. Amy was working on setting up better communication systems. Danny Foster stood quietly nearby, watching for any signs of trouble. As the evening went on, the formal ceremony became more relaxed. Jake found himself talking with different Zelthari about their culture, their history, and their technology. They were peaceful people who had never fought wars like humans did. They solved problems by reading each other's minds and finding solutions everyone could agree on. "Your species fascinates us, Captain Morrison," said an elderly Zelthari scholar. "You have such strong emotions, such determination. We can feel it radiating from all of you." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Your thoughts are different from ours. We think calmly, logically. But humans think with fire. Even now, we can sense your curiosity, your excitement, your caution all mixed together. It's beautiful in its own way." Jake was about to ask more questions when he felt a gentle touch on his arm. He turned to see Kiravel standing beside him. "Captain Morrison, may I speak with you privately?" she asked. Her voice sounded nervous. "Of course," Jake said. He followed her to a quiet corner of the hall. Kiravel looked around to make sure no one could hear them. Then she looked directly into Jake's eyes. "I need to show you something," she said, "but I'm afraid of how you'll react." "What is it?" Jake asked. Instead of answering, Kiravel made a soft whistling sound. A moment later, a young boy came running over. He looked like a Zelthari child, but something was different about him. His skin was the same pale blue, but his eyes were brown instead of silver. His face was rounder, more human-like. "This is my son, Zenmar," Kiravel said softly. Smiled at the boy. "Hello, Zenmar. I'm Captain Morrison." The boy stared at him with wide brown eyes. Then he said something in the Zelthari language to his mother. Kiravel's hands were shaking as she reached into her robes and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the air above it. Jake's heart stopped. The image was a photograph of him in his Earth Force uniform. It was a picture from his military file, one that had been taken 3 years ago. "Where did you get this?" Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Kiravel looked at her son, then back at Jake. Tears were running down her blue cheeks. "He's the one," she said to her son, pointing at Jake. "He's your real father." Jake felt like the ground was falling away under his feet. This was impossible. He had never been to this planet before. He had never met this woman or her child. But as he looked at the boy again, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The boy had his eyes. The same brown eyes Jake saw in the mirror every morning. And now that he was looking closely, the shape of the boy's face was familiar too. "This can't be possible," Jake said. But even as he said it, he knew that somehow, impossibly, it was true. Jake stared at the holographic image of himself, then at the boy with his brown eyes. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of what Kiravel had just told him. This had to be some kind of mistake or trick. "This is impossible," Jake said again, his voice shaking. "I've never been here before. I've never met you before today." Kiravel wiped the tears from her face. "I know how this must sound, but please, let me explain." The boy Zenmar was looking back and forth between his mother and Jake. He seemed confused and a little scared by all the emotion he was sensing from the adults. "Mom, why is the human captain upset?" the boy asked in perfect English. His voice was soft and musical like his mother's, but there was something else in it that reminded Jake of himself as a child. "It's complicated, my son," Kiravel said gently. "Why don't you go play with your friends? I need to talk to Captain Morrison alone." The boy nodded and ran off to join some other young Zelthari who who were watching the humans from across the room. Jake noticed that the other children seemed to treat Zenmar differently. They were polite to him, but they kept their distance. "Can we go somewhere more private?" Kiravel asked. Jake looked around and saw that some of the other Zelthari were starting to notice their conversation. Dr. Rodriguez was watching from across the room with a concerned expression. "Yes," Jake said, "but I want my science officer to come with us. If you're claiming something this impossible, I need witnesses." Kiravel nodded. "Of course." Jake waved Dr. Rodriguez over. "Sam, I need you to come with us. Something very strange is happening." Dr. Rodriguez joined them, and Kiravel led them to a smaller room off the main hall. The walls here were the same living crystal, but they glowed more softly, creating a peaceful atmosphere. "Please, sit down," Kiravel said, gesturing to some comfortable-looking chairs that seemed to grow out of the floor. Jake and Dr. Rodriguez sat down, both of them tense and confused. 9 years ago, Kiravel began, I was part of the Zelthari exploration team. We were studying a distant star system when our sensors detected something unusual. It was a human ship, badly damaged and drifting in space. Jake's heart started beating faster. A human ship? That's impossible. 9 years ago, humans hadn't traveled beyond our own solar system yet. "I know," Kiravel said. "That's what made it so strange. The ship was unlike anything in our databases. It seemed to be built with technology that was both human and something else, something we didn't recognize." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. "What happened to the ship?" "We brought it aboard our vessel. Most of it was destroyed, but there was one survivor. A human male. He was unconscious and dying from radiation poisoning." Kiravel's voice became soft and sad. "Our medical team did everything they could to save him. They managed to keep him alive for 3 days. During that time we learned his language, his memories. His name was Jake Morrison." Jake felt like he couldn't breathe. "That's my name." "And he looked exactly like you," Kiravel continued. "Same face, same voice, same brown eyes. He was you, Captain, but he was also different somehow. Older, sadder, like he had seen terrible things." Dr. Rodriguez was taking notes on his tablet. "Did he say anything? Any explanation for how he got there?" "He was delirious most of the time from the radiation. But he kept repeating the same things over and over. A set of coordinates. A date. And he kept saying, 'Save them. Change it.' The children are the key." Kiravel stood up and walked to the crystal wall. She pressed her hand against it, and it showed an image of space with stars and coordinates floating in the air. "These are the coordinates he gave us," she said. "They point to a nebula 3 systems from here." And the date he kept repeating is in 2 weeks from now. Jake stared at the coordinates. They looked familiar somehow, but he couldn't remember where he had seen them before. "But how does this explain your son?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. Kiravel turned back to them, her silver eyes full of pain. "When the human died, our medical team had already preserved samples of his genetic material. It's standard procedure when we encounter a new species. At the time, I was grieving the loss of my mate, who had died in the same accident that damaged our ship when we tried to rescue the human vessel." She sat back down, her hands folded in her lap. "Zelthari reproductive. Biology is different from humans. We can carry children from genetic material of compatible species, even after the donor has died. In my grief and loneliness, and because the human's final words seemed so important, I chose to carry his child." Jake's mind was spinning. "You're saying that the man you found was me from the future? It's the only explanation that makes sense." Kiravel said, "Time travel is theoretically possible, especially near certain stellar phenomena. The nebula he gave coordinates to is known to have unusual temporal properties." Dr. Rodriguez was typing rapidly on his tablet. "Captain, I need to run some tests." If what she's saying is true, there should be genetic evidence. What kind of tests? Jake asked. DNA comparison. If that boy is really your son, it will show up in the genetic analysis. Kiravel nodded. I've been hoping for this day for 9 years, hoping that somehow the Jake Morrison I knew would find his way here again. When your ship arrived and I saw your name on the crew manifest, I could barely believe it. And when you met me in person, Jake asked, I knew immediately. You have the same mind patterns, the same thoughts. But you're younger, more innocent. You haven't experienced the terrible things that the other Jake had seen. Jake stood up and started pacing. This was too much to take in. If Kiravel was telling the truth, then somewhere in the future, he would travel back in time and die 9 years ago, but not before fathering a child with an alien woman he had never met. The tests will take a few hours, Dr. Rodriguez said. I'll need a sample from both you and the boy. Zenmar will cooperate, Kiravel said. He's been asking about his father his whole life. I've told him that his father was a brave human who died saving others. What if the tests prove it's true? Jake asked. What then? Before Kiravel could answer, Amy Chon's voice came through. Jake's communicator. Captain, we're receiving an urgent message from Earth Command. They want to speak with you immediately. Jake pressed the communicator. I'll be right up, Amy. He looked at Kiravel. I need to take this call. But we're not done talking. I understand, she said. Captain, there's something else you should know. The coordinates that the dying Jake gave us? Our long-range sensors have detected something. Approaching from that direction, something big. What kind of something? Dr. Rodriguez asked. We don't know yet. But it's moving fast, and it's heading toward both Earth and Zelthara Prime. It will arrive in exactly 2 weeks. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. 2 weeks. The same date that his future self had kept repeating. I have to go, he said. Sam, start those tests immediately. And Kiravel, I want to talk to your son. If he really is my child, he deserves to know the truth. As Jake hurried back toward his shuttle, his mind was full of questions. How could he have traveled back in time? What was approaching their star systems? And most importantly, what terrible future was his other self trying to prevent? Back on the Liberty, Amy was waiting for him in the communications room. Captain, Earth Command sounds very worried. They want a private channel. Jake sat down at the communication console. The face of Admiral Roberts appeared on the screen. He looked grim. Jake, we have a problem, the Admiral said. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected a massive fleet heading toward Earth. Unknown origin, but they're big, and they're moving fast. We need you and the Liberty back here immediately. Jake's blood ran cold. Admiral, what's their estimated time of arrival? 2 weeks, Jake, maybe less. The same date. Jake closed his eyes and tried to think. Somehow his future self had known this was coming. He had tried to warn them, but had died 9 years ago. Now it was up to Jake to figure out what to do. Admiral, I can't leave yet. There's something happening here that might be connected to the threat you're detecting. Give me 24 hours to investigate. Jake, that's an order. Return to Earth immediately. With respect, sir, I think the answer to stopping this threat might be here on Zelthara Prime. Trust me. The Admiral stared at him for a long moment. 24 hours, Jake. Then you come home, ready or not. The screen went dark. Jake sat back in his chair, his mind racing. In 24 hours, he had to figure out how to change a future that had already happened. And he had to do it with the help of a son he had never known and an alien woman who claimed to love a version of him that no longer existed. The impossible had become reality. Now he had to find a way to make it work. Jake couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the boy with his brown eyes and the impossible story Kiravel had told him. Every few minutes, he would check his communicator, waiting for Dr. Rodriguez to send the test results. At 3 in the morning, ship time, his door chimed. Jake opened it to find Dr. Rodriguez standing in the hallway, holding his tablet. The science officer looked tired and confused. "Sam, what did you find?" Jake asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. "You're not going to believe this, Captain," Dr. Rodriguez said, stepping into Jake's quarters. "The DNA test is positive. That boy is definitely your biological son." Jake sat down heavily on his bunk. Even though part of him had expected this result, hearing it confirmed made everything real. "How is that possible?" Jake asked. "I've never been here before today." "I've been thinking about that all night," Dr. Rodriguez said. "The only scientific explanation is that you will travel back in time at some point in the future. The temporal mechanics are incredibly complex, but it's theoretically possible." Jake rubbed his face with his hands. "So somewhere in the future, I go back in time, father a child, and die. And now I'm here meeting that child." "That's what the evidence suggests," Dr. Rodriguez said. "But Captain, there's something else. I ran additional tests on the genetic sample from Zenmar. His DNA shows markers that are impossible." "What kind of markers?" "Enhanced cellular regeneration, improved neural pathways, increased physical strength and endurance. It's like someone took the best of both human and Zelthari genetics and combined them perfectly." Jake stood up and started pacing. "You're saying he's some kind of super child?" "I'm saying he has abilities that neither species possesses alone. The Zelthari are telepathic but physically fragile. Humans are tough and adaptable but not telepathic. Zenmar appears to have both sets of advantages." Before Jake could respond, Amy's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain Morrison to the bridge. We have an urgent situation." Jake and Dr. Rodriguez hurried to the bridge. Amy was at her station, looking worried. Lisa was standing at the main screen, which showed a tactical display of the local star system. "What's the situation?" Jake asked. "We're getting reports from our long-range sensors," Lisa said. "Whatever Earth Command detected is moving faster than we thought. It's not just one ship. It's an entire fleet." Amy pressed some buttons, and the main screen changed to show a grainy image of space. In the distance, Jake could see dozens of dark shapes moving against the stars. "We're still too far away to get clear readings," Amy said. "But our computers estimate at least 50 ships, maybe more. They're big, Captain. Much bigger than anything humans or Zelthari have ever built. How long until they reach Earth?" Jake asked. "At their current speed, 10 days, Lisa replied. "Maybe less." Jake felt his stomach drop. The timeline was accelerating. "What about Zelthara Prime?" "They'll reach here first," Amy said. "Maybe 8 days." Dr. Rodriguez was studying the sensor readings on his tablet. "Captain, the energy signatures from those ships are unlike anything in our databases. They're not using any propulsion system we recognize." Jake's communicator chimed. It was a message from Kiravel, asking if he could meet her at the Zelthari Council building. She said it was urgent and that she was bringing Zenmar. "I have to go down to the planet," Jake told his crew. "Keep monitoring those ships. If they change course or speed, I want to know immediately." An hour later, Jake was back on Zelthara Prime, walking through the crystal corridors of the Council building. Kiravel was waiting for him with Zenmar and several other Zelthari who looked like important officials. "Captain Morrison," Kiravel said, "these are the members of our High Council. They know about our situation." An elderly Zelthari with deep silver robes stepped forward. "I am Council Leader Vexnam. We have been discussing the approaching fleet with our best scientists and military advisors. What can you tell me about them?" Jake asked. "We call them the Devourers," Vexnam said. "They appeared in our region of space about 50 years ago. They attack worlds, strip them of all resources, and leave nothing behind. Entire civilizations have been destroyed. Jake felt a chill. How many worlds have they destroyed? 17. That we know of, Kiravel said. They seem to target planets with intelligent life. No one has ever successfully fought them off. Zenmar, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. But Father fought them before. Everyone turned to look. At the boy. His brown eyes were serious and focused. What did you say? Jake asked. The father who died, Zenmar said. In his memories that Mother shared with me, he fought the metal ships before. He knew how to hurt them. Kiravel looked surprised. Zenmar. I never shared those memories with you. I know, the boy said, but sometimes I dream about them. I see the father fighting the metal ships near the spinning stars. He was trying to save everyone. Jake knelt down to the boy's level. What's spinning stars, Zenmar? The boy closed his eyes and concentrated. Two stars that dance around each other very fast. They make the space around them twist and bend. The father wanted to use them as a trap. Dr. Rodriguez, who had come down with Jake, was furiously taking notes. Captain, he's describing a binary pulsar system. The gravitational effects could theoretically create temporal distortions. The nebula, Jake said suddenly. The coordinates my future self gave you. It's near a binary pulsar, isn't it? Vex now nodded. Yes, the temporal nebula, we call it. It's a dangerous place where time moves differently. Jake stood up, his mind racing. My future self wasn't just giving you random coordinates. He was telling you where to make a trap. But Captain, Kiravel said, the Jake who died told us something else. He said, the children are the key. We never understood what he meant. Jake looked at Zenmar, who was watching him with those familiar brown eyes. I think I'm starting to understand. Over the next few hours, Jake worked with the Zelthari scientists to understand more about the approaching fleet. The Devourers used technology that seemed to absorb energy from the ships and weapons that attacked them. Conventional weapons were useless against them, but Zenmar kept talking about his dreams of the future Jake. In those dreams, Jake had found a way to use the temporal effects of the binary pulsar to create a trap that the Devourers couldn't escape from. The problem is, Dr. Rodriguez explained, using the temporal effects as a weapon would require someone to manually control the process from inside the nebula. It would be a suicide mission. Jake was quiet for a long moment. That's why my future self died. He sacrificed himself to save Earth and Zelthara Prime. But it didn't work, Zenmar said softly. In the dreams, the plan failed. The metal ships were too smart. They learned the trap and escaped. Then why am I here now? Jake asked. If the plan failed, why did my future self bother to warn you? Zenmar looked up at him with a sad smile. Because this time you have me. The children are the key, remember? The father who died didn't have any children to help him. Kiravel gasped. Zenmar, what are you saying? I can do things that neither humans nor Zelthari can do alone, the boy said. I can think like both species at the same time. I can touch machines with my mind like Mother's people, but I can also be brave and stubborn like Father's people. Jake felt a mix of pride and fear. His son was offering to help fight an enemy that had destroyed 17 worlds. But the boy was only 9 years old. It's too dangerous, Jake said. I won't put you in harm's way. But Father, Zenmar said, and hearing the boy call him Father made Jake's heart skip a beat. You already did. The other father made me so. That I could help you now, that's why I exist. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his calculations. Captain, the boy might be right. If he can interface with both human and Zelthari technology simultaneously, he might be able to control the temporal effects in ways that no one else can. Jake looked around the room at the faces of the Zelthari Council, at Dr. Rodriguez, at Kiravel, and finally at his son. They were all looking at him with hope and expectation. "What exactly are you proposing?" Jake asked. Zenmar stepped forward and took Jake's hand. His small fingers were warm and strong. "We go to the spinning stars together," the boy said. "You teach me to be brave like a human. I'll teach you to think like a Zelthari. Together, we can build a better trap than the one that failed before." Jake squeezed his son's hand and looked at Kiravel. She was crying, but she nodded. "The future. Jake changed history by creating Zenmar," she said. "Now it's up to you and your son to finish what he started." Jake took a deep breath. He had 24 hours to convince Admiral Roberts to let him attempt the most dangerous mission in human history. And he had to do it with a 9-year-old boy who was both his son and his only hope of saving 2 worlds. The timeline was set. In 8 days, the Devourers would reach Zelthara Prime. In 10 days, they would reach Earth. Jake and Zenmar had to be ready to face them at the Temporal Nebula before then. The fate of both species now rested in the hands of a human captain, and the half-alien son he had never known he had. Jake stood in the communication room of the USS Liberty, staring at Admiral Roberts on the main screen. He had just finished explaining everything: the temporal paradox, his half-alien son, and the approaching Devourer fleet. The Admiral's face showed disbelief and concern. "Let me get this straight, Jake," Admiral Roberts said slowly. "You want to take our most advanced ship into a dangerous nebula with a 9-year-old alien child to attempt a suicide mission based on dreams and time travel theories?" "Admiral, it's our only chance," Jake replied. "The Devourers have destroyed 17 civilizations. Conventional weapons don't work against them. This temporal trap might be the only way to stop them. And you're basing this on the word of aliens you just met?" Jake took a deep breath. "I'm basing it on scientific evidence and the fact that the child is my son. The DNA tests prove it. Somehow, I traveled back in time and died trying to warn everyone about this threat. Now I have a chance to finish what I started." Admiral Roberts was quiet for a long moment. "Jake, even if everything you're saying is true, I can't authorize this. We need the Liberty and her crew back on Earth to help with the defense." "What defense, Admiral?" Jake asked. "You said yourself that we've never seen anything like these ships. Our entire fleet won't be enough to stop them. We have to try." "And we will fail," Jake said firmly. "Just like my future self failed when he tried this alone. But now we have something he didn't have. We have Zenmar." Before the Admiral could respond, Lisa Parker entered the communication room. She looked excited and worried at the same time. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, handing him a tablet. Jake looked at the screen. It showed sensor readings from the approaching Devourer fleet. The ships were massive, each one at least 5 times larger than the Liberty. But what made Jake's blood run cold were the energy readings. "They're not just ships," Jake said, understanding what he was seeing. "They're machines that eat energy. They absorb power from everything around them: stars, planets, other ships." Admiral Roberts leaned forward on the screen. "What does that mean?" "It means they get stronger every time someone attacks them," Lisa said. "Every weapon we fire at them just makes them more powerful." Jake looked back at the Admiral. "This is why conventional defense won't work, sir. We can't fight them with force. We have to outsmart them." Dr. Rodriguez entered the room, carrying his own tablet. "Captain, I've been working with the Zelthari scientists. We think we understand how the temporal trap would work." "Explain it," Admiral Roberts said. "The binary pulsar creates massive gravitational waves," Dr. Rodriguez said. "These waves can create closed time-like curves, essentially temporal loops. If we can lure the Devourer fleet into the right position, we can trap them in a repeating loop of time." "How?" "Someone has to manually adjust the gravitational field generators while inside the nebula. Dr. Rodriguez continued. The timing has to be perfect, and the person controlling it has to be able to interface with both human and Zelthari technology simultaneously. Admiral Roberts looked skeptical. And only this alien child can do that? Only Zenmar, Jake confirmed. He has abilities that neither species possesses alone. He can think like both a human and a Zelthari at the same time. The Admiral was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally he spoke. Jake, I've known you for 15 years. You've never let me down. If you really believe this is our only chance, then I'll trust your judgment. But I want one thing clear. This is a volunteer mission only. No one goes who doesn't want to. Understood, sir. And Jake? If this doesn't work, Earth's defenses will be ready for the Devourers when they arrive. The screen went dark. Jake turned. To his crew members, you heard the Admiral, he said. This is volunteer only. I won't order anyone to come on a suicide mission. Lisa stepped forward immediately. I'm with you, Captain. We've been through too much together for me to abandon you now. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. Someone needs to monitor the scientific aspects of the operation. I'm in. Amy Chun and Danny Foster both volunteered as well. Soon, nearly the entire crew of the Liberty had signed up for the mission. Jake felt proud and terrified at the same time. 2 hours later, Jake was back on Zelthara Prime, meeting with Kiravel and the High Council. They had been preparing their own ships for the mission. How many vessels can you spare? Jake asked. Council leader Vexnam. 12 of our fastest ships, Vexnam replied. They're not warships, we don't build those, but they're equipped with the most advanced sensors and shields we have. Kiravel stepped forward. I'm coming with you. Absolutely. Not, Jake said immediately. It's too dangerous. Zenmar is my son too, she said firmly. If he's going to risk his life to save both our worlds, then I'm going to be there with him. Jake wanted to argue, but he could see the determination in her silver eyes. It was the same stubborn look he saw in the mirror when he had made up his mind about something. Besides, Kiravel continued, someone needs to help Zenmar use his Zelthari abilities. I'm the only one who understands how his telepathic connections work. Jake nodded reluctantly. All right. But you follow my orders during the mission. Of course, Captain. They spent the next 3 days preparing for the mission. The combined human Zelthari fleet would travel to the Temporal Nebula and try to lure the Devourers into the trap. Jake studied everything the Zelthari knew about the enemy ships, looking for weaknesses. The Devourers were smart. They had learned from 50 years of destroying civilizations. They wouldn't be easy to trick. But Jake had something they didn't expect, a human's refusal to accept defeat, combined with abilities they had never encountered before. On the 4th day, Zenmar came to visit Jake on the Liberty. The boy was excited to see a human starship, asking questions about everything he saw. But Jake could tell he was also scared. Are you sure you want to do this? Jake asked as they sat in his quarters. I'm scared, Zenmar admitted. But Mother says that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared, Jake smiled. Your mother is very wise. Father, can I ask you something? Of course. The other father, the one who died, in my dreams I can feel how sad he was. He had to do everything alone. But I don't want you to be sad like he was. Jake put his arm around his son. I'm not alone this time. I have you, and your mother, and the best crew in the galaxy. And I have you, Zenmar said. The other father didn't have a chance to teach me things, but you can. What do you want me to teach you? Zenmar thought for a moment. Teach me to be stubborn like a human. Mother says humans never give up, even when things seem impossible. Jake laughed. That's called determination, and you're already learning it. But I'll teach you something else too. Humans believe that no problem is too big to solve if you're willing to work hard enough and think creatively enough. Is that why humans explore space even though it's dangerous? That's exactly why. We see the unknown, and instead of being afraid, we get curious. We want to learn and grow and find new friends among the stars. Zenmar nodded seriously, like finding mother's people. Like finding your mother's people, Jake agreed. The next morning, the combined fleet departed for the temporal nebula. 13 ships total, the USS Liberty and 12 Zelthari vessels. It wasn't much against 50 massive devourer ships, but Jake had learned that sometimes the size of your fleet mattered, less than the size of your determination. As they traveled through space, Jake spent time with both his crew and his new family. He watched Zenmar work with the ship's computers, amazed at how easily the boy could interface with both human and Zelthari technology. The child's mind seemed to work on multiple levels at once. Dr. Rodriguez was fascinated by Zenmar's abilities. "Captain, I've never seen anything like it. He can process information like a Zelthari while maintaining human intuition and creativity. It's like he has the best of both species' mental abilities." "That's what's going to save us," Jake said. On the second day of their journey, their long-range sensors detected the Devourer fleet changing course. The enemy ships were heading directly for the temporal nebula. "They know we're here," Lisa reported. From the bridge. Jake smiled grimly. "Good. That means they think we're a threat. Let's show them that they're right." Amy's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet. Put it on screen." The main view screen flickered, and a face appeared that made everyone on the bridge gasp. It looked like a human face, but wrong somehow. The skin was gray and metallic, and the eyes were completely black. "Humans," the creature said in a voice like grinding metal. "You have something that belongs to us. Give us the hybrid child, and we will make your deaths quick." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Federation. The child is under our protection." The creature's metallic face twisted into what might have been a smile. "You cannot protect him, human. We have consumed 17 worlds. Your small fleet means nothing to us." "Then come and take him," Jake said. The transmission ended. Jake turned to his crew, his face determined. "They want Zenmar," he said. "That means he really is the key to stopping them. Everyone prepare for battle. It's time to show these machines what the human spirit can do." The temporal nebula stretched before them like a rainbow made of twisted space and time. Jake stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the swirling colors that marked where reality bent and folded in impossible ways. Behind them, the 50 massive devourer ships followed like a dark cloud of death. "Zenmar, are you ready?" Jake asked into his communicator. "Yes, Father," came the boy's voice from the engineering section. "I can feel the spinning stars. They're singing to me." Hiravel's voice joined the conversation from the Zelthari command ship. "His neural patterns are stable. He's maintaining connection to both our computers and yours simultaneously." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from his science station. "Captain, the binary pulsar is generating gravitational waves exactly as predicted. If we can position the devourers in the right spot, the temporal loop should activate." "How much time do we have?" Jake asked. "The window is very small," Dr. Rodriguez replied. "Maybe 30 seconds when the pulsars align perfectly. Miss that chance, and we'll have to wait another 6 hours for the next opportunity." Lisa Parker was coordinating the fleet movements from her position. "All ships are in position, Captain. The Zelthari vessels are ready to create the sensor illusions." Jake had devised a plan that relied on both human cunning and Zelthari telepathic abilities. The Zelthari ships would create false energy readings to make the Devourers think the human fleet was hiding powerful weapons in the center of the nebula. When the enemy moved to attack, they would be in position for the temporal trap. "Execute Phase 1, Jake ordered. the Zelthari ships began transmitting false energy signatures. On the sensors, it looked like the small human Zelthari fleet was suddenly generating massive amounts of power. The response was immediate. The Devourer ships accelerated toward them, their metallic hulls gleaming with absorbed energy from the nebula itself. "They're taking the bait," Amy reported from communications. "All 50 ships are moving into attack formation." Jake watched the tactical display as the enemy fleet approached. Everything had to be perfectly timed. Too early, and the Devourers would escape. Too late, and they would destroy the Allied fleet before the trap could activate. "Zenmar, can you feel the gravitational waves?" Jake asked. "Yes, Father. They're getting stronger. The stars are almost ready to dance together." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The Devourer fleet had opened fire, sending waves of energy that ate through shields and armor like acid. "Evasive maneuvers," Jake shouted. "All ships, execute pattern Delta." The human and Zelthari vessels scattered, weaving between the swirling gases of the nebula. Several Zelthari ships were hit, their crystal hulls cracking under the assault. "Captain, we're losing ships," Lisa reported. "The Zelthari vessels can't take much more of this." Jake gritted his teeth. The plan was working, but they were paying a heavy price. The Devourers were now exactly where they needed to be, but his fleet was being destroyed. "Zenmar, how much longer?" he called out. "Almost ready, Father. The stars are starting to sing." Louder, one of the Devourer ships turned its attention to the Liberty. A beam of dark energy lanced out, striking the ship's shields. Jake felt the deck shudder beneath his feet. "Shields down to 60%, Danny Foster reported from the weapons station. "Return fire," Jake ordered. Even though he knew their weapons would only make the enemy stronger, the Liberty's energy beams struck the Devourer ship, and Jake watched in frustration as the enemy vessel absorbed the energy and grew brighter. Another Zelthari ship exploded in a burst of silver light. Then another. The enemy was cutting through their fleet like it was made of paper. "Captain, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions," Dr. Rodriguez called out. "The pulsars are reaching alignment." "Zenmar now!" Jake shouted. In the engineering section, 9-year-old Zenmar placed his small hands on both the human control console and the Zelthari neural interface that his mother had installed. His brown eyes began to glow with the same silver light as his mother's people. Jake felt a strange tingling in his mind as Zenmar's telepathic abilities reached out to him. Suddenly, he could sense what the boy was experiencing. The gravitational waves felt like music, and the binary pulsars were indeed dancing, spinning around each other in a cosmic ballet. Through their mental link, Jake could feel Zenmar's concentration as the boy began to manipulate the gravitational fields. It was like watching a master musician play an incredibly complex piece, except the instrument was space and time itself. "It's working," Dr. Rodriguez said in amazement. "The temporal fields are forming around the Devourer fleet." But something was wrong. The enemy ships were starting to move, trying to escape the trap before it could close. "They're too smart," Jake realized. "They've learned from previous encounters. They know what we're trying to do." The largest Devourer ship, the one that had spoken to them earlier, began transmitting again. The metallic face appeared on the main screen. "Clever, humans. But we have faced temporal weapons before. We will not be trapped so easily." The Devourer ships began firing at the nebula itself, trying to disrupt the gravitational fields that Zenmar was carefully constructing. "Father, I can't hold it." Zenmar's voice came through the communicator, strained with effort. "They're breaking my patterns." Jake made a decision that would have seemed impossible to anyone who didn't understand the human spirit. Instead of retreating, he ordered the Liberty to charge directly at the largest Devourer ship. "Captain, that's suicide," Lisa protested. "Trust me," Jake said. He opened a channel to all remaining ships. All vessels follow the Liberty. We're going to give Zenmar the time he needs. The battered human and Zelthari fleet charged into the heart of the enemy formation. It was a desperate move that made no tactical sense, but it caught the Devourers off guard. They had never encountered an enemy that became more aggressive when, facing certain defeat, the Liberty shook under massive energy impacts, but Jake kept the ship on course. Through his mental link with Zenmar, he could feel the boy's determination growing stronger. "I understand now, Father," Zenmar said. "You're showing me how to be stubborn like a human." "That's right, son. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to save what matters most." Zenmar's abilities suddenly expanded beyond anything anyone had thought possible. Instead of just manipulating the gravitational fields, he began to interface directly with the Devourer ships themselves. His hybrid mind could understand their technology in ways that pure humans or pure Zelthari never could. "I can see inside their minds," Zenmar said with wonder. "They're not evil, Father. They're just hungry. But I can teach them a new way to eat." Instead of trapping the Devourers in a time loop, Zenmar did something unprecedented. He used his telepathic abilities to show them how to feed on the energy of stars, instead of destroying planets. Through the gravitational fields of the binary pulsar, he transmitted this knowledge directly into their collective consciousness. The change was immediate. The Devourer ships stopped firing and began to drift toward the binary pulsar itself. For the first time in 50 years, they had found a way to satisfy their hunger without destroying entire civilizations. The metallic face appeared on the screen one last time, but now it looked different. The black eyes showed something that might have been gratitude. "The hybrid child has shown us a new path," the creature said. "We will leave your worlds in peace. Perhaps one day, we will meet again as friends instead of enemies." The Devourer fleet disappeared into the heart of the nebula, drawn to the infinite energy of the dancing stars. Jake collapsed into his captain's chair, exhausted but victorious. Around him, his crew was cheering. Through the communicator, he could hear similar celebrations from the surviving Zelthari ships. "Zenmar, are you all right?" he asked. "I'm fine, Father. But I'm very tired." Kiravel's voice came through the channel. "He did something amazing, Jake. He didn't just defeat them. He saved them." 6 months later, Jake stood in the garden outside. His new home on Zelthara Prime. He had resigned from Earth Fleet to become the permanent human ambassador to the Zelthari. It had been an easy decision. His family was here. Zenmar was playing nearby with other children, both human and Zelthari. News of the victory at the Temporal Nebula had spread throughout the galaxy, and both species had begun working together more closely than ever before. "What are you thinking about?" Kiravel asked, joining him in the garden. "The future," Jake said. "Zenmar is going to grow up in a galaxy where humans and aliens work together, where different species learn from each other instead of fighting. And it all started because a human refused to give up," Kiravel said with a smile. Jake watched, his son teaching human children how to use basic telepathy while showing Zelthari children how to be more adventurous. The boy had become exactly what his future self had hoped for, a bridge between species. "No," Jake said, putting his arm around Kiravel. "It started because love can create impossible things. And sometimes, the impossible is exactly what the galaxy needs." In the distance, a new ship was arriving from Earth. More humans were coming to explore the galaxy, inspired by the story of the captain who found his son among the stars and helped save 2 worlds. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, built on the foundation of one man's refusal to accept that some things couldn't be changed.